Hey fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. I'm Michael Pachter. If you are a Patreon patron, we thank you so much for your patronage. If you're a YouTube subscriber, thank you. That's very kind of you. Please remember you have to re-up your Amazon Prime subscription linkage with your Twitch Prime. You've got to do that every month. So if you haven't done it for a while, please check out the show description below, and there are instructions on how to link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. If you do that, we get paid a couple bucks. It costs you nothing. Amazon provides that as a free perk, and the way they squeeze you is they make you redo it. It's only a couple of clicks. We get $2. Please give us 2 clicks for $2. It would be great. Today's question from Patreon from Gregor Gulwy. With all the recent layoffs over the last couple of years, do you think the console market has peaked and is heading back down the other side? Do you think industry headcount will ever reach 2022 levels again? What kind of future does the paid video game market really have, competing with so many high-quality free-to-play games that lock players in for months? I've been saying this for years, and I wrote an industry report in 2009 that was called The Last Console Cycle. I didn't actually, I've been criticized for this, but if you read the report, it was 250 pages of brilliance. I didn't actually predict that the current console cycle was the last one. I was saying that each console cycle would be smaller than the one prior, and that has been true. And I saw in 2009, and then I expanded upon that in 2014, that free-to-play, not mobile, was going to start to dominate. It was pretty obvious that you were going to get free-to-play experiences like League of Legends and now like Apex Legends that were just going to suck up time, and gamers were going to enjoy them. So it was pretty clear to me. And then mobile is exploding, and mobile quality is getting better. So again, it's not the same as console, but it's a lot better than it was. And we can argue. I think mobile is better than like Nintendo DS was. So pretty good, good quality. And so the fact is that we just have a lot of things competing for our time, and I think the console gaming market has become largely a single-player game market where multiplayer gaming can be accomplished, through free-to-play experiences like League of Legends and Apex Legends. And, ultimately, I don't think consoles go away. I think that they're like movie theaters, so I've said this before. I think they'll always have their place, and there's going to be a place where there's going to be a group of people who will pay for a console and will want that experience. It's just that market is going to go from 300 million to 200 million to 100 million players over the next several generations, and so not going away. But about industry headcount and the other side, it's declining, and I think that if you really look at each publisher, and Ubi and Nintendo are kind of outliers, but look at Activision, Take-Two, EA. Activision was more than 50% mobile when it was acquired by Microsoft, and EA is about 35%, and Take-Two is about 30%, so maybe 40. So these guys are heavily mobile, and so industry headcount has been heading toward mobile for years. And the truth is that that's where the money is, so that's where the publishers are going to be. And we want to, we expect that the IP will be available to consumers wherever they want to play. So if you want to play Call of Duty Mobile, it's there. If you want to play Call of Duty console, it's there. So will we ever get console software development employment back where it was? No, it's going to decline. And the solution to all of this is to make fewer games. So, we've talked about the number of scripted television series was 150 back in 2005, and it's over 550 now. Now, what happened? Streaming, right? And there's a lot of demand. But what happened to episodes? Go back and pull up a season of Friends on Netflix. And what you're going to find is that there's 20 or 22 episodes in a season. Pull up a season of Stranger Things, and there's 8. So what we've done is we've gotten way more content, but far fewer episodes. And that means smaller risk for each thing made. So that's kind of what's going on with console. They're making fewer and fewer and fewer games, and they're putting more resources into live service games, into free-to-play games. And everybody wants one. Take-Two's got one coming out from 31st Union. It's Michael Condrey's studio. Everybody's got a new way to do it, and everybody's going to try to figure it out. So Michael Condrey, who was a console guy, is going to be a free-to-play guy. It's not mobile. It's like League of Legends, PC based, and possibly on console like Apex. But that's where the jobs are going. So yes, I think that the paid video game market is going to decline the way the movie market has declined. When I told you about the 150 scripted TV shows going to 550, movies in 2000, there was 202 major studio films from the 7 big major studios, who have consolidated now into 5, but there were 7 studios. This past year, 24, I think there were 100. It's literally been cut in half. What the game publishers are going to do is make fewer and fewer games because they don't want to take a chance. And so, Activision got down to making Call of Duty as an Activision publishing game and nothing else. Like, they just kind of stopped making anything else. And Blizzard makes 1 or 2 games every 5 years. I mean, they don't release very many titles, and EA's making fewer and fewer. Everybody, Take-Two's making fewer and fewer. So I think that's where consoles are headed. It's like the movie theaters. They're going to go after the big multi-billion-dollar budget movies that do multi-billion dollars of box office, and they're not going to make the small romantic comedies that make $50 million at box office. Just not worth it. So that's what I think, and I think the market's headed toward free-to-play that locks you in for months, and those of you who want the paid experience are going to still be offered it, but just fewer choices. I don't think that we will ever reach the point where nobody's willing to do it, because there will always be demand for, let's say, 100 million units of super high quality single player experiences. And that 100 million might be 1 year all GTA and nobody else, and it might be another year Call of Duty and Battlefield. So it's going to move back and forth, but that demand is going to exist. And I said 100 million. It might be 200 million, but there's going to be a lot of demand for that, just not as great as it was in the past. And so the question is, how do they segment that demand with the supply that they offer? And there will always be mistakes and there will always be successes. I would say that, like movies going from 200 to 100, frontline core single player video games will go from probably 30 or 40 a year to like 20, but they aren't going to go to 0. Because there will be enough demand to support the 20, but there used to be 100, frontline core single player games. And it used to be that you could make a game and sell 3-4 million units and make money. You can't at a $200-300 million budget. You can at a $20 million budget for sure. But the days of Tony Hawk, over. Just not enough demand. Actually, I was just talking to an X Games guy about just who are the X Games famous people, because back in the video game, prime days, the golden era of video games, I could name Travis Pastrana, and Tony Hawk, and now the X Games guy told me they're suffering. Nobody watches the X Games, and why? Because the audience wasn't big enough, and the cost of production got bigger and bigger and bigger. It's really why EA stopped making college football for 10 years and then came back to making it. What happened was the cost of making the game didn't justify the revenue they got from the game. And so what ended up happening was, here, college football used to sell like 3 million units, do $150 million of revenue. And all of a sudden, every conference was asking for 10 million and every college was asking for 1 million. And there are 5 major conferences and 50 major schools, and EA was like, we can't pay $100 million and generate 150 in revenue. Can't do it. So they canceled. So what happened? Name, image, and likeness came in to compensate athletes, and what the schools realized was they're not going to get the best athletes unless they guarantee them name, image, and likeness payments. And here's EA. We'll pay every athlete on your team, $700. And that really is the number. It's something like that. But, times, I can't even name the number of athletes, 6,000 athletes, it ends up being millions and millions of dollars. And the schools are like, oh, we can guarantee the kicker a payment? Yes. Where do we sign up? So the schools realize that this is such big business, and the transfer portal came at the same time, that they couldn't wait. So EA is now minting money on college football where they used to lose money. So you're going to need changes in how games are built and developed. And I do think that AI is going to help in the level design and stuff. You can build levels and probably put them on the shelf and use them again with different skins, and it probably will work. But game development costs right now are really high. And I think it's because the consumer is so demanding, and you can't expect a game that sells 1 or 2 million units to look as good as a game that sells 25. You just can't. So fewer 1 million unit games, more 25 million unit games, which necessarily means fewer games. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. Thank you for subscribing as a Patreon patron or a YouTube subscriber. Shane is able to afford eggs because of that. And please remember, you have to re-up your Amazon Prime and Twitch Prime link every month. So please check the show description below, and there are instructions on how to do that. That costs nothing. So it costs you the time it takes to click on the show description and follow the instructions, about 30 seconds, and Shane gets $2. So please do it, because if we multiply that times a couple of million of you that are watching this right now, Shane will be able to retire, and there aren't a couple of million of you, but tell your friends. Anyway, appreciate the linkage. I will see you guys next time.